Evening all, and welcome to the Pyramid Podcast, where normally three lads discuss all things the English football pyramid. On today's episode, we'll have a review of the England games versus Malta and North Macedonia, a discussion of the points deduction for Everton. We'll preview the Premier League action, including the big one on Saturday lunchtime between Man City and Liverpool. We'll look at the main fixtures from the EFL, including Pyramid Pod Cup holders Southampton games against Huddersfield. We'll finish with a Pyramid Pod treble and an update from Lawro, who will talk us through Yeovil, whose winning run has now come to an end. I'm your host, Alex Murphy, and once again, I'm joined by Tom Gallagher, but not Tom Lawrence. Quick apology from Lawro. Got to work tonight, so he can't make it this week, but he promises to be back on Monday with a bang. Tomo, hope you're well. We'll get stuck straight in with England. 1-2-0 against Malta, drew 1-1 with North Macedonia, topped the group, in pot one for the draw for Germany in the summer, but seen a lot of negativity around England. Are fans losing their mind a little bit around sort of Southgate in England?
Yeah, absolutely. I think today's generation, and I'd include myself in this, so I'm not going to have a go at other people, but football fans, we are entitled, aren't we? And we do expect to win every game 3-0, and not only to win every game 3-0, but to be entertained and all of this sort of stuff. But the reality of those two games were pretty much they were dead rubbers. That England-Malta game at Wembley, we were always going to win. And that secured top spot in the group, I believe, which meant that which meant that we were through. We were through already. But then the North Macedonia game, he made quite a lot of changes. It was a bit of a shit pitch. It was one of those games where, do you know what? Actually, that game there, and actually the international break has proven to me that referees on the continent are just as crap as referees in the Premier League. We're always talking about how we need to get the best referees over in the Prem, but the reality is the best referees are the ones who do international breaks and the ones who do Champions League, and they're crap as well, aren't they?
We've spoke, haven't we, about we need to get the UEFA style refereeing in. We need to get the sort of technology for offside and the technology for the goal line, which is all well and good, but the refs are just as shocking, aren't they? Like the penalty decision, not for the goal, the one against Malta not for Kane, and the one for the Rico Lewis, which led to the North Macedonia goal. They're just as incompetent, aren't they?
Yeah, and we have spoke about this a lot of times on the pod. I'm sure we'll talk about it throughout the season, but it does feel like the whole thing with VAR is a case of the expectations are so high now from referees because they're watching replays. So when they don't give decisions that we think should be given, or when they give decisions that we think shouldn't be given, there's no we don't forgive them, and our anger levels are higher than they would be without VAR, I guess, because without VAR they've got one angle, they've got one chance at it, etc. But on to sort of England as a whole, I'm not worried too much. Like at the end of the day, these players they play so many games, and to be honest, I'm surprised that say for instance Gareth Southgate didn't rest Harry Kane altogether for these 2 weeks and just have 2 weeks, go off to the Maldives or something with your missus and your kids, because we need you fit and firing for the summer, because at the end of the day we were already qualified. That's the only thing that matters, and that's the only thing that Gareth Southgate's going to get judged on. And we've seen time and time again, the reality of Gareth Southgate's job is this: no matter what he does, he won't please everyone, and he'll get slagged off. Like Simon Jordan talks a lot about him on Talk Sport, and he basically says, unless he wins Euro 2024, he's a failure. And it's like, well, if that's the level of, do you know what I mean? If that's the level of sort of success you're judging Southgate by, then he's probably always going to be a failure, because it only takes one missed penalty from Harry Kane against France to potentially lose that game, or it takes a dodgy decision in the final against Portugal or something. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's so much sort of context that football fans don't take into consideration. But yeah, look, in the grand scheme of things, this international break didn't mean anything, and I wouldn't worry too much about the performances at all.
No, I'm wholeheartedly happy that it's over. I think that there's a few players, you're right, should have just been rested, not made to travel to North Macedonia altogether. Players are complaining about the amount of games that they play in a season. I've seen United players feel like they didn't even have a rest in pre-season because of the amount of travelling they had to do to America, the amount of games they had to fit in, the amount of media duties. You just think by time you had the Winter World Cup, where we've seen an uptick in injuries, you had the extended season, people are complaining about longer pre-seasons. We've now got a whole season before the Euros. These big England stars, like friendlies that we've got in March and things like that, where it plays out in front of a dead Wembley, just don't play them. Try and work out who your second striker is going to be. Don't play Harry Kane in it. Work out who you're going to have from Watkins, Tony, and Nketiah, Wilson. Don't be dragging your big stars like him and Bellingham. Just tell them to stay in Spain and Germany or go on holiday.
Completely agree. I would almost treat it as an England B game. Those friendlies, just rest the first 11. Just let them have the time off. But look, that's another discussion for another time.
Yeah, there'll be. I think we got international break again in March, which is a lovely little break from having them. But we'll be having the same conversations, won't we? Why is Henderson playing? Why do England look so negative? Are they going to win the Euros? So we'll be sure to have that conversation in a few months' time. So very happy, but Prem's obviously back. A bit of news that happened during the international break, though, Tomo, was around Everton. They had a 10-point deduction for, I think, financial fair play breaches. Just your thoughts on if you think that's a fair punishment, and then we'll move on to what that means for their upcoming fixture against Man United.
I don't think, to be honest, I don't really know the ins and outs of the financial side of it. Obviously, I'm not an expert on that side, so I don't really know if the punishment's too harsh or not. But usually with these things, they get sort of reduced on appeal. So I'm wondering if the appeal sort of is semi-successful, then it will go down to, say, 6 points or 7 points, and then it looks a little bit fairer. Obviously, the context is key with that punishment because we're just about to get that independent regulator, the Premier League. And so the Premier League are trying to sort of show to that regulator and show to the government that they have the ability to punish financial irregularities, and they have the ability to sort of clean their own house, if you will. The sort of interesting thing, obviously, you watch these sort of things on breaking news on social media and see how football fans on social media react. And obviously, there's a lot of talk about how Everton have got 10 points and for one charge of breaking the rules, and obviously Man City seem to have 115 outstanding charges. And the reality of that situation is that Everton admitted wrongdoing, and although probably tried to bend the rules of sustainability to sort of fit in those FFP guidelines, they've been basically punished because they admitted to wrongdoing. Whereas Man City, they've got 115 charges, which obviously includes like enhanced sponsorship deals, like irregular salary payments to Mancini and so on. And they basically are accused of kind of like ultimately cooking their books in order to look like, or in order to say that they have played by the rules. And they deny all of the charges. So it almost feels like Everton would have been better off denying all the charges. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in terms of how it will affect Everton, at the end of the day, they look good. Sean Dyche has picked up 10 points from the last 5 games. They look like they're on a bit of a run. They look like they before this 10-point deduction, they look like they would be nowhere near relegation. So if you were ever going to get a 10-point deduction as an Everton fan, this season might be the season where it's okay, because they look like there's certainly 3 clubs in the Premier League worse than them. So they might be right in the long term.
Yeah, and they could be out of the relegations as of this weekend, right? Luton, Sheffield United are 2 and 1 points respectively ahead of Everton. Everton have obviously got United on Sunday, but you bang on that it could be the right time to get that sort of deduction. Sometimes I just imagine that could be completely deflating, where you're on 14 points and you're starting to think, well, if we win against United, we can go on to 17 and potentially break into that top half. Suddenly you're right in amongst it and you've got almost like claw back those points. But yeah, I think it's just going to make it a lot more of a difficult season for them to stay up. from what was probably looking like for the first time in a couple of years, a bit of a comfortable one. But let's move on to that game. Wouldn't normally be the game we'd start with some of the other fixtures, but nice segue into it. I've seen on Twitter people saying that they've heard of the new manager bounce, and it's just like Man United's luck to have the -10 points bounce. Like, how up for the game is Goodison Park going to be, and how up for it is Everton going to be? And we know what United are like when you concede early or the crowd gets up, they tend to crumble. I can already picture that Super Sunday playing out. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, because I think, especially, look, Sean Dyche has got that team playing well, and if I was an Everton fan watching that Everton team now, they're quite likable, and so this whole 10-point deduction almost creates that us versus everyone mentality, and it galvanizes the whole club and the fan base to back their team. So yeah, I am worried about that as a United fan. And I think we spoke on the last pod. I just mentioned then about Dyche getting 10 points from 5 games. Well, United have picked up 12 points from the last 15, or 12 points from the last 5 games. So they're the informed team in the Prem, which is mad to say. Yeah, look, I think it's going to be a difficult one. My prediction is that Everton will win. Like you say, just that sort of deduction bounce just feels like it's sort of inevitable. Like the storyline is already written, if you will. The only thing I will say is we played Everton 3 times last year. I think once in the FA Cup, and we won all 3 games. So we obviously fancy our chances against Everton under Ten Hag. We won the game last year at Goodison Park 2-1, but it was all the way back, I think, in last October, and Cristiano Ronaldo was one of the goal scorers. So seems like a long time ago, that result. But yeah, look, I completely agree with what you just said. I do think Everton will get the win here, because 4:30. I think it's 4:30 on a Sunday. It's going to get dark by the time full time goes. You just feel like that atmosphere is going to be wild, don't you? Yeah.
You just know what it's going to be like, and I've always kind of pictured games against Everton. I think like back in like the Arteta and Cahill days and things like that. It just feels like that it just gets sucked into the net at that. Is it Gladys Street? The end that there's like they're like faithful are in, and I don't know. I got a horrible feeling about it. I mentioned on the last pod as well. United are absolutely terrible about late runners into the box, and Doucouré's been absolutely unleashed into that. I think if Calvert-Lewin's playing, he'll look to give whoever's partnering Maguire back there kittens, and you can just see Doucouré arriving late and slamming it home. But on the bright side for United, Luke Shaw back into full training properly today. I don't know whether I can't imagine with the amount of time that he's had out, he'll be chucked straight into the lineup, but it'd be great to have him back with some big games coming up. Sounds like Onana's fit as well. So hopefully he's playing, if that's a decent point for United or not. But yeah, I don't know. It's horrible to say as a United fan, but I'd probably take a draw there. I genuinely think that I'd back Everton to win that game.
No. You can't ever go as a United fan go into a game taking a draw.
No, all right. Sorry, I wouldn't take a draw. I just think that I agree with you that Everton will win. So I'd take a draw.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Just a quick one on Everton as well. I know you mentioned the front players who have been really good.
Yeah.
The basis for them turning the corner, I think, is that strong partnership in centre back, in their centre backs with Tarkowski and that Branthwaite, is it? He's just signed a new contract, and he looks like a really good player. He's only young, isn't he? And United have actually been linked with him. I don't know whether that was leaked just before he signed his new deal, so he could get a sort of a couple more grand on the weekly wage. But yeah, he looks like a proper player, and yeah, look, Dyche has got them playing really well. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting game on Sunday. Yeah,
very much so. We'll move on from that one, and we'll jump back to lunchtime on Saturday. Probably one of the biggest game, well, definitely the biggest game of the season so far. City versus Liverpool. Liverpool in an early kickoff again. Seen a bit of conspiracies about that, but I think I've spoken with you beforehand, and that's more policing rather than an agenda against Liverpool. But a game that I genuinely can't call. I've seen sort of Ederson, Rodri, Haaland all miss international duty, but are you expecting all of them to be in the lineup come Saturday? And if you are, do you fancy City from there?
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, City are imperious at the Etihad, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I've just had a look at Liverpool and Klopp's record at the Etihad, and they haven't won there in the last 8 seasons. Yeah, so and usually you sort of suggest that Liverpool, Man City, they usually go hammer and tong at each other, and so I'm expecting a really good game. I'm expecting fireworks, but yeah, Ederson, Rodri, Haaland, I expect them to be back in the team, fully fit, and yeah, unfortunately for Liverpool, I probably think that this might, it's not like a be all and end all, but it might sort of signal that they're not quite ready to challenge City just yet. Just having a look at last season's result in this fixture, City won 4-1. Salah scored the opening goal, but then Alvarez, De Bruyne, Gundogan, and Grealish all got on the score sheet. So yeah, look, for the title race, I do think it would be great if Liverpool could win, but I just can't see past City because of their home form.
I know this is not a particularly nice question to ask a United fan, but City have, I think, obviously won a number of Premier Leagues in a row now. But if it had to boil down to it for those two sides, one to win the Prem, would you still pick City to win it over Liverpool as a United fan?
Yeah,
Me too.
I know, but that whole Gary Neville thing, what did he say? It's like choosing between your best mate and your brother to who would sleep with your wife or something
Yeah.
like that. And that is true, but I'd rather my best mate do it than my brother.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
nah, just City, they win all the time. There's always that asterisk when City win because of the Abu Dhabi stuff and the state ownership. And Liverpool are it's just Liverpool Man United is the bigger rivalry, more intense rivalry.
Yeah.
And Liverpool fans are bigger dickheads.
There's a lot more of them as well, Liverpool fans in there, and they're way more in your face. So you don't know too many City fans, do you?
No.
So yeah, interesting game. Yeah, I can't really call it. I don't know. As we've touched on before, Lawro's touched on it quite a bit. I don't think City are the side they are. If any one of those three is missing, it's a massive drop off for them. You know, if Edison goes to, is it Ortega, the backup keeper there? If Rodri's not playing, you suddenly, you then, I know we keep saying it, but you're then missing Gundu and Rodri and KDB. They obviously lost those 3 games that he missed through suspension. If any of them are missing, I think it becomes a lot closer game. And I know Liverpool haven't won there in 8 years, but again, to quote Lawro, those records are there to be broken. And I think for the title race, it would be good if Liverpool got something. Interesting point though, Tomo. We are United. If we do win at Everton and Liverpool lose against City, we'd be 3 points behind them, which, considering how doomsday our start's been, not bad.
Yeah. God, but the eye test doesn't lie, Murph. The eye test doesn't lie.
No, -3 goal difference as opposed to their +17. I do always think that when people say we're the informed team, we've won 4 out of 5 games, but we are not in form, are we? So
no. Yeah.
Another big game in the Prem, Tottenham versus Villa. Obviously, Tottenham have got the Maddison injury, the Van de Ven injury, the Romero suspension. Looks like Sonny went off for South Korea as well on international duty. Villa are a very informed team, albeit their form a little bit stronger at home. Fancy Big Ange's men to get back on track there, or Villa to pick up some points against them?
Well, I'm just having a look at Tottenham's squad list, if you will, and look, they've got Maddison, Richarlison, Van de Ven, Perisic, Sessegnon, and Solomon all injured, and then Romero and Basuma are out suspended.
Oh, I didn't realise Basuma was suspended. That's massive.
Yeah, and obviously the thing is with Villa, they win every game at home, not so good away. And you don't. And look, Tyrone Mings has got a long-term injury, Buendia's long-term injury, Jacob Ramsey long-term injury, so they have players missing as well. I get that, but yeah, I just fancy Villa just because Tottenham are decimated. Yeah, and Villa won both games last season. This fixture, they won 2-0 last year. Douglas Luiz scored and Emi Buendia scored. But yeah, and just on their sort of record against Spurs, they've only won 4 of their last 25 games against Tottenham, and they've lost 18 of those. So Tottenham have got a great record in general against Villa, albeit they lost both games last season. So that's a really tough one to call, especially because, like I just mentioned, all of the players missing for Spurs. So I think if I was Ange now, I would definitely take a draw. But I'm going to go for a Villa win.
Anything from a Villa point of view, injury-wise, that we know of? I know obviously Ming's out long term, but I can't think of anyone else particular that they're missing. So they'll be fairly full strength, I'm guessing.
Yeah, like I said, they've obviously got the long-term injuries that we all know about. Jacob Ramsey's a big one. Obviously, he's a good player, isn't he?
Yeah.
Tyrone Mings posting on social media this week about his comeback. Yeah, I know, bit narcissistic if you ask me, but that's like football players are brands these days, aren't they? So got to do what you got to do. But this is a big game for Ange, because if they can sneak a win here and get a win, that would be a great result to obviously stop the rot a little bit. And then they've got City next, haven't they? So
yeah,
I don't. If Spurs do win this game, I can't see them sort of going free flowing Ange ball. I think it will be a sneaky sort of smash and grab. But yeah,
I'm just going to say that to you. Obviously, that Chelsea Tottenham game, he kept that sort of like 9 men. We're still going to go for it high line, and people were like raving against it. Wolves, they sort of pressed to get a second goal, conceded 2 in injury time. I just wonder if they do that against Villa, that sort of like, oh, we're going to play our style regardless, and then lose, and then go to Man City, which is a very losable game. Suddenly, Big Ange is, since the start of November, lost all 4 games, and just suddenly a bit of a change of mentality for him, where the media are still all over him and he's a media darling. Suddenly he's lost 4 in a row, going in towards the Christmas break. They've then got West Ham, Newcastle, Forest away, all before Christmas. With Romero will be back.
Just a quick one on the tactics of that game. We've spoke a lot about obviously Tottenham's high line, and we spoke a lot about Aston Villa's high line. So if you're a midfielder going into that game, there's going to be absolutely zero space to play into. And if you're a winger or an attacker, there'll be so much space in behind for both teams, you'd like to think. So
yeah,
that's a really interesting game to watch as well, because I'm not sure I've ever seen 2 really high lines come up against each other. So
not that both play on halfway line. It's going to be absolute madness. But
yeah, it will be.
I've got Cash, Diaby, Watkins, and Son all in my fantasy. You didn't mention Son in that injury list. I'd seen on Twitter that he picked up a knock, but I'm guessing he's considered available, because all 4 of them are currently in my team for the weekend.
Yeah, Sonny's available. Yeah.
Good. So yeah, with those high lines, fancying some points back there. Maybe not for Matty Cash, but there we go. Another big game. Really nice fixtures, actually, this to come back to. Brentford versus Arsenal. Obviously, it's been a bit of a game with a bit of history since they won 1-0, didn't they, Brentford? And like Ivan Toney tweeted, like, nice kickabout with the boys. And then Arsenal went and won, and Gabriel came back at them. But Brentford, obviously, a really difficult place to go. With the other big sides in City-Liverpool playing each other, Tottenham and Villa all within that top 5 playing each other. Arsenal will be looking to win at Brentford and maybe open up a little bit of a gap.
Yeah, but that's a really tough game, because we speak a lot, don't we, about Brentford. They're happy to sit in, they're happy to soak up that pressure, and especially at home, you can see them getting something. Although I'm just having a look at the head-to-head record, and I know Brentford. You mentioned that game when Toney scored and Brentford won their first Premier League encounter 2-0. That was the Friday night football's kickoff.
Oh yeah, it was, and Sergi Canos scored as well, didn't he?
Yeah, and that was to kick off the league, wasn't it? But other than that, actually, Arsenal have got quite a good record. They've won 3 of their last 4 against Brentford and drew the other one. So God, it's all of the fixtures this weekend are tough to call, to be honest, because we're going to come on to Newcastle Chelsea in a minute as well. But yeah, look, the thing is with Arsenal, they obviously with Gabriel Jesus and Eddie Nketiah, can they stay fit? I think Jesus played against Argentina last night, so
Yeah,
That's a
Gabriel
huge.
would have, Jesus would have. I don't know if Martinelli's in the squad for Brazil, but they'll all be travelling back sort of today, ready for Saturday 5:30.
Yeah, look, I fancy for some reason. I know Arsenal's best player this season has been Declan Rice. I'd suggest, and they've been quite attritional, I would say, as opposed to free flowing at their best like they were last season. Um, you'd think if you were an Arsenal fan, you'd like to think that they could turn the corner and start playing some good football, but I can't see it against Brentford. I think Brentford will sit in and grind out a result, whether it's a draw or nick a win.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think that's a real tricky game for Arsenal. I think obviously Arteta would be delighted with any win in the Premier League, but I think he'd look if those boys could go and get a win at Brentford, he'd see that as a real big sign of character. And as I say, with they'll already know the City-Liverpool result by then. They'll know that Tottenham and Villa have got to play each other so on the Sunday. So a win there would be massive for them. I will back them just to sneak it, but it really wouldn't surprise me if Brentford got something at home to them. You mentioned Newcastle Chelsea, a game that we'll move on to. Chelsea, I think a couple games ago, we were looking at them sort of down near the bottom of the table. They had Tottenham away and City home to come, and then a Newcastle away game. But picked up obviously 4 points from them, looked unbelievable against Man City in spells. Newcastle obviously have had an injury list, but I'm guessing maybe got one or two coming back in. Thoughts on whether Chelsea can go and cement that good form and get something at St James's Park?
The thing is with the Chelsea results against Spurs, if you take that Spurs one out of it, because that was like a 1 in a million game, I think you can't read anything into that. But Man City almost suit the way Chelsea want to play because they come at you and they play and they give you opportunities on the break because they sort of dominate the ball. Whereas Newcastle, on the contrary, will probably be happy to sit in, sacrifice having a lot of the ball and then sort of counter-attack and hope to counter-attack at will. And I think Chelsea have struggled against teams who do that this season. I am just having a look at the injury list for Newcastle, though. You've got Botman, Barnes, Wilson, Murphy, Target, Byrne, Manquillo, Anderson, all on the treatment table. Tonali suspended. Longstaff is a doubt, and Lewis Hall can't play against his club because he's only on loan from Chelsea. So they are completely depleted. God, so that's what I mean. It's a really difficult one to call because if they had a sort of half of those injuries, I'd back Newcastle to win because they're at home. God, yeah, impossible to call. If you had a gun to my head, I'd say a draw. Yeah,
it's a really tricky one. Completely agree with. I wasn't quite sure how many players were still out for Newcastle, but that is still such a long list and a couple suspended. And as you say, Lewis Hall parent club can't play against them. So I think Chelsea will back themselves there. Really odd fixture that 3:00 on a Saturday. Just feels like a TV game, doesn't it? I know we've got City-Liverpool, Brentford, Arsenal, Tottenham, Villa, Everton, Man United. So we've complained about some TV game weeks, but can't complain with that. But that really feels like a TV game.
I just think with our conspiracy theory about Newcastle playing 5:30 on a Saturday, that game there is just 5:30 on a Saturday all day long. Thank you very much, Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And then no questions asked. Yeah, that's 3 p.m. We can't watch that one.
Or Brentford Arsenal moves to Monday Night Football, where you've got like under the lights at Brentford's grounds with trying to cause an upset. It would mean we wouldn't get to watch Fulham v Wolves, but
and Arsenal might struggle with that because they've got Champions League on Tuesday. But
yeah. Apart from that, so round up the rest of versus Brighton. Brighton, I think we mentioned on the last pod, haven't won in the league since the 24th of September. Feels like a while ago now since De Zerbi's rant about the referees. But tricky looking fixture there. Forest tend to sort of like show up every so often, don't they, and give a real good account of themselves. So wouldn't surprise me if Brighton's winless run continued there. Burnley host West Ham. Vincent Kompany obviously desperate for a win, but West Ham picked up a bit of form just before the international break. So I think they'll probably be looking to go and cement the rot there for Vinny Kompany. Luton versus Crystal Palace, Sheffield United versus Bournemouth, and then Monday Night Football's Fulham Wolves, which obviously we'll preview on Monday's pod. But yeah, great to have the Prem back and a great set of fixtures there. And can't wait to review all of that on Monday. We'll move on to the EFL. We'll start with the Pyramid Pod Cup. So Southampton had it for 3 games now. Obviously, international break, so been a while since they've played. But they go away to Huddersfield. I'm guessing fancying Southampton to retain the cup and extend that to 4 weeks or 4 games.
Absolutely, yeah. Like we spoke about in the last pod, they beat West Brom last time, and Russell Martin admitted that they played poorly and still got the win. Huddersfield, they're struggling this season. They've lost 3 of their last 4, and they got pumped by both Leeds and Cardiff in those games. So they have got a better home record than away, but yeah, Southampton have got too much. They've definitely got too much for Huddersfield. So Pod Cup stays with the Saints.
Can't be long until they start to come into the FA Cup if their league form continues and we get them into the draw. I know because Yeovil got Wrexham in round 2, so I'm guessing from the next round onwards we start to see those Championship and Prem teams. So it'd be interesting to see if they've still got it then, who they come up against, and whether we can get that cup jumping about the leagues a little bit.
Yeah, well, if they get 10 in a row, I'm going to have to buy myself a Southampton shirt, I think.
Yeah, I think that will have to be the case. We'll have to get something for it, and yeah, whoever it ends up at the end of the season will track who's got the longest streak and that sort of thing. So yeah, indeed. So we'll move into the rest of the Championship games. So Leicester, who obviously top, they've got Watford, but I think Watford's form has picked up quite a bit, hasn't it, in recent game weeks? And even though Leicester are at home, Watford might be a bit of a tricky opposition.
Yeah, look, Watford, I know they're 13th in the Championship, so it does sort of on paper look like a Leicester banker, but they're unbeaten in 6. They've conceded just 3 goals in that time. They beat Rotherham 5-0 last time out. We spoke a lot about Leicester sort of on the receiving end of 2 defeats in a row. So it's a big game really for Leicester just to sort of stop that rot and get the momentum back. The thing is, I've had a look at the head-to-heads, and I know head-to-heads don't really matter much, but sometimes you just like to sort of look for patterns, and Watford have only won 1 of their last 8 games against Leicester, and they've lost 6 of those. So, and I know most of those games would have been in the Premier League, so this will be the first time they've met in that.
That was the Anthony Knockout penalty miss Troy Deeney fixture, wasn't it? That's
I don't. No, I don't think so. But because that was a long time ago. That was what, 2015?
Yeah, a few years ago now. As in, that's just the fixture, isn't it? It was those 2 teams.
Yeah.
So yeah, that might be.
But yeah, like I was saying, I do. Look, Leicester have definitely got their number. The last time these 2 were in the same league, Leicester won all 3 games that season. They must have faced off in the cup as well, and they had an aggregate score of 13-4. So, and just because Leicester at home, yeah, look, they have lost 2 in a row, but it was 2 tough games. Middlesbrough and Leeds, both sort of promotion hopefuls as well. But I fully back Leicester to sort of get back on the winning train, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll just from that mentioned Watford beat Rotherham 5-0. That's actually Friday Night Football, Rotherham versus Leeds. We haven't obviously got Lawro with us to discuss that and give us a reason why Leeds will romp that and win 6-7-0. But Rotherham in terrible form. I think they're still looking for their new manager at the minute. And I think there's been some injury sort of boosts for Leeds getting people back to fitness. So really fancy Leeds to get the job done on Friday Night Football in style. And I'm sure Lawro would agree with that. So obviously touched on Leicester. Next in the table, Ipswich. They go away to West Brom. Obviously said about Southampton beating West Brom in the last fixture to retain the cup. But West Brom are a side who have been picking up points, and probably a difficult looking fixture for Ipswich going away there.
Yeah. Just mentioned that I know West Brom lost to Southampton, but they were the better team. They probably on another day would have at least got a point, maybe even sneaked a victory. So it's a really tough game for Kieran McKenna's men. They're the sort of informed team, aren't they, in the Championship? Just seem to score 4 or 5 every week and concede 3 or 4 every week. Do you know what I mean? They're a really fun team to watch. That's a tough one to call, to be honest, because like I said, West Brom have found a bit of form, albeit they lost their last game.
Yeah, they're up into seventh now, West Brom, and if they did win at home to Ipswich, then that would take them on to 29. So they could go as high as fifth there if the Preston and Sunderland results went their way. And Laurie's obviously spoken Nanny about that gap between them. That's down to 8 points now, that gap with Leicester, Ipswich, and though Leicester probably have no issues with Watford, if West Brom can pick some points up there and Leeds do win Friday night football, that would be down to 5 points.
Yeah, and if I was a Leeds fan, I'd be hoping and praying that West Brom can get a result, because that's exactly the sort of fixture that. Thing is, if I was an Ipswich fan, if I was Kieran McKenna, I'd almost take a draw there. Like the Championship games, just run and run and run. Saturday, Tuesday. West Brom's away is a really tough fixture. Take a draw, move on. Do you know what I mean? That's what I'd be saying. But anyway.
Yeah, if Leeds do get that job done on Friday night football, it'll already be 5 points by tying Ipswich, travel to West Brom. Interestingly, that's on at 5:30 on Saturday as well. So that is on TV. If people don't fancy the Brentford versus Arsenal game, that is on Sky. But I'm sure most will be watching the Prem game unless you're a Baggy or a Tractor fan. And then just one other game to touch on, Tomo, chat on Wayne Rooney. And also it does feature in the Pyramid Pod treble to give a bit of a sneak preview of my selection. But Birmingham host Sheffield Wednesday. Rooney obviously without a win, but albeit had some difficult fixtures. I don't think that he can really afford to not be picking up all 3 against Sheffield Wednesday, who are pretty hopeless.
No, you're right. They've only drawn the one game since he's took over, and they've gone from 5th to 18th in the Championship. So it's not looking good, Wayne. But I think we touched on the previous pod. Their fixtures, starting with this weekend, sort of turns a corner. It does look like, albeit the Championship, there are no easy games, but it does look like they've got a run of easier games, if you will. So yeah, I fully expect him to pick up his first win. And if he doesn't win, then there has to be serious questions to ask, to be honest, because this is the sort of the big game for him. He definitely needs to win this one. God.
Yeah, they have got bottom of the table there, and then they have got Blackburn away, which is tricky, but they're only sort of 3 points behind them at the minute. So they can obviously get right in amongst the middle of the table if they do beat Sheffield Wednesday. But if they can pick up a result there after that, I think they've got Rotherham at home, and then Coventry away. So some games there that they'll really be looking to pick up some points. And I think for his sake as manager of them, he'll need to pick them up. So hopefully he can get his first victory, because as I've alluded to, they are my selection for the treble, but we'll come on to that a little bit later. We'll move on to League One. So Tomo, Portsmouth versus Blackpool. And I think you wanted to delve into a couple of strikers who are banging them in League One.
Yeah, so we spoke a lot about Colby Bishop, didn't we, in the last podcast? He scored 10 goals in League One this season, but he's coming up against another informed striker in Jordan Rhodes. He scored 10 goals in League One as well. He's got 3 assists to Colby Bishop's 2, and he's got a better goal minutes per goal ratio. But so interesting to see how the two sort of bagsmen gets on this weekend. Albeit Portsmouth are at home, they're obviously flying, so expect them to get the job done against Blackpool. But interesting to see how those two get on.
Yeah, they had that 2-2 draw with Charlton, didn't they? I think we discussed it on the last pod. Blackpool aside, whose results had turned a corner, they're up to 8th. So not a complete sort of set in stone win for Portsmouth. And Blackpool did beat Shrewsbury 4-0 a few days ago at the weekend. So
actually we have spoke a lot about Portsmouth being unbeaten. I think since March or February. But just had a look at the table there, and they've drawn 6 games out of 16. So you can
Yeah,
sort
they're
of
only a point ahead.
and you can sort of almost flip that narrative however way you want to see it. It's like getting a draw. Okay, that's good because you're undefeated and shows a bit of resolve that you're not losing, but also sort of one or two things go against you, and then those draws can quickly become like defeats. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
That game is probably a bit closer than I first imagined. But look, Portsmouth are still at home, so
Yeah, and six draws is 12 points dropped in it. You're as similar as winning 2 games and losing 3, albeit you can say you're on an unbeaten run. Yeah, it does show a bit of resolve, but they are plenty of drop points. And considering Portsmouth haven't lost since then, to only be a point ahead in the table, just shows the strength of other teams in League One. One of those sides who is a point behind them is Oxford. They go to Cheltenham, who are off the bottom now. Actually, they're up to 23rd. And they've now got 7 goals, so they are starting to really pick up, and only 8 points off the drop zone. But I fancy Oxford to go and win there, which you won't be unsurprised about. And I think their new manager's in, Des Buckingham, I think it is, who's taken the role there. So hopefully he'll be looking to continue his good form, the club's good form, but can't see them slipping up there.
no. And I was having a look at when I saw him get the job, that Des Buckingham. Obviously, I'd never heard of him, but he's a former Oxford player, and as a manager, he come from Mumbai City.
Yeah, I'd seen that.
And I think he did a stint in New Zealand, Australia as assistants and managers, and then obviously he's gone to Mumbai to become, well, that's his first sort of senior management role, and he's done really well. So it's an interesting one to keep an eye on, because not your conventional coaching sort of route, is it, that? But
No, I've just seen as well. They're Mumbai City Football Club. Their short name's MCFC, and they play in Sky Blue.
yeah,
So
so
that City group.
yeah, Mumbai City are in City Group, and obviously Melbourne, where he was assistant manager before, are in the City Group as well.
Okay, that
But
makes sense.
it also means that the City Group are no mugs, are they? They only employ sort of up and coming coaches, so he must have something about him.
Yeah, I mean that their monopoly on football now, City, the way that they're doing it is unbelievable, isn't it? You can just like have managers that you almost have like, oh yeah, go out to Melbourne, get your badges there, go to Mumbai, any city that begins with M, let's just move you up through the ranks until suddenly you end up at Manchester City. Absolute mad how they run football now. But there we go. A couple other games in League One. So Bolton versus Exeter. Exeter have not won since the 16th of September in League One. Bolton at home, obviously hot on the heels of Portsmouth and Oxford, so fancy them to win. I actually saw their striker, Dion Charles, who I think we've spoken about with the goals that he's scoring before. I think he's Northern Irish. I think he scored against Denmark in the week in international break. So if he's out scoring against sides like Denmark, then he must be full of confidence. So
Yeah, can I just quickly on Denmark? They're crap.
oh, okay.
They are absolutely terrible. They only beat San Marino by 1 goal, didn't they, in the last international break?
They got Hoyland up front, mate, so he doesn't score.
Yeah, I think he scored in that game, but
oh, well done. Yeah, Hoyland and Eriksson both injured, to be fair to Denmark, but still, League One striker going and scoring against a side of, I know Denmark aren't great, but a nation of Denmark size. Fair play to him.
Yeah.
And then just one other fixture: Lincoln versus Barnsley, 9th place versus 6th place, but only 1 point between them. So tight at the top of League One as well, as always. So keep you all informed on Monday of the key results from there. And I think there's midweek action as well, which we'll preview. But yeah, League One is really shaping up nicely. Move on to League Two. So Newport versus Stockport. Stockport lost in the EFL Trophy, which means their winning run came to an end, and we'll discuss about Yeovil as well. The two sides who I think were both up to 14 wins in a row, but they did win in the league at the weekend. So Stockport obviously still top of League Two. Fancy them to go and win at Newport.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, I know they lost that cup game, but that it's all about getting in the next division, isn't it? All about promotion. And Lawro spoke a lot about their manager. All he ever does is get promoted. So can't see anything other than a Stockport win in that game. Yeah.
8 points clear of Wrexham now, who are in that fourth place position. So 3 go up automatically from League Two. So they just keep churning out results there, Stockport. And I think they'll be looking to really cement an automatic and, as you say, look to go up. Team that are probably hottest on their heels is Mansfield. They're 6 points behind, but got a game in hand. They go away to Swindon. Swindon have not won in the league since the 14th of October, and Mansfield remain unbeaten in the league. Mansfield, obviously, a side we've spoken about in length, and again, not to ruin the Pyramid Pod treble too much, but you really fancy Mansfield away at Swindon?
Yeah, just they just seem to be the informed team a little bit. Although if you flip that Portsmouth argument on its head, Mansfield have won 9 and drawn 8 this season. So,
yeah,
but they are second, and they are doing really well. They've won. I think they won on the weekend 2-0, wasn't it, against Newport. They beat Salford away from home in the previous game 2-1. That Keeler done. He scored a brace on the weekend and he got the winner at Salford. He's banging form. He's got 11 goals and 4 assists in 17 games this season.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. I was having a look at his sort of history as well. He's 20. I was hoping he was going to be like 21, but he's 26. So he's obviously in his prime now, really. Joined from Burton in January, and he's a sort of hybrid midfielder or attacker, but he's scored 17 goals for them since he joined the club in January. So obviously on to bigger and better things if they do get promoted with him, because he's a good player. But yeah, the only thing with Swindon, them being at home, they have got some fucking bagsmen in their team. That Jake Young that Laura spoke about last time, he scored 13 goals already this season. That Dan Kemp scored 9 goals and got 6 assists. And then they got Charlie Austin, who I know he's coming to the ends of his career, but if you've got Charlie Austin coming off the bench for 15 minutes every game, it's not a bad thing, is it? So that'll be
they look like they score as well, Swindon, and they've not won in a while, as we say. But you are right. You know, they scored against Harrogate, scored 2 against Stockport, scored against Colchester, scored 4 against Aldershot, 2 against MK Dons. So they keep finding the back of the net. They obviously just can't bloody defend.
Yeah, well, yeah, you talking about that Aldershot game? They scored 4, but they conceded 7.
That's the shots for you, though, mate. They're an absolute outfit. So yeah, couple of other fixtures there. 10th place versus 3rd place, Wimbledon versus Notts County. While we were away on international break, Notts County won 4-2 versus Bradford last weekend. I think that game was on TV actually, and I think they absolutely battered them. Langstaff in the goals. I think McGoldrick scored as well. So they'll be looking to pick up a win against Wimbledon and cement their place. And then Wrexham versus Morecambe, 4th versus 9th. Last weekend, Wrexham actually lost versus Accrington. Did you see like a bit of the controversy that was happening on Twitter about that? I think it was like basically Accrington Stanley have a set price for away tickets. But I think like Wrexham game, rather than charge 20 quid for away fans, they charge 25 quid. And like their chairman came out and said that's one of their like 4 fixtures, which is like a category A match, the equivalent of like what happens in the Prem. But apparently like Wrexham were kicked off about it, and then the Accrington owner was like, well, hang on, you streamed the game like across America using our live stream, and we didn't make a dollar out of that. So yeah, a bit of kicking off there. But Accrington obviously won that game, and I saw your man Paul Mullin rattled the bar from a penalty as well.
Ah, God. Come on, Paul, do me a favour. Yeah. No, I watched the fella on Gillette talk about that game. I think it was Danny Mills actually covering that game. And he was saying Wrexham looked bad. So I'd expect them to rebound basically and absolutely batter Morecambe.
Yeah, Morecambe are in 9th. Their form has picked up, but their managers left Morecambe to go to Ross County. He said that he wants to get them into Europe, but they're currently 11th out of 12 in the SPL, which did get me thinking, where do you pitch the teams in the SPL? So like Celtic Rangers, obviously a class of their own. Are they Championship sides, Premier League sides?
Who? Rangers and Celtic.
Yeah.
Rangers
What?
and Celtic. Well, Rangers and Celtic at the minute are probably championship sides, but if you put them in the Prem with their like crowd and sort of fan base, they would 100% be a Prem team, no problem.
Okay. So then you move down the table. So I had a look at the SPL because I was like, I saw Derek Adams left Morecambe to go to Ross County, and I thought, right, he's gone from League Two to SPL, so let's not be too harsh on him. But just looking down through that table, you obviously got Celtic, Rangers. You then have St Mirren, Hearts, Dundee, Kilmarnock, Hibs, Motherwell, Aberdeen, St Johnstone, Ross County, and Livingston. So he's gone to the side who have got 10 points in 12 games in the SPL. Are Ross County and Livingston and St Johnstone, who are down there, are they anything higher than a League Two, League One club? Like
No,
SPL football can't be much stronger than those leagues.
no, not at all. But this story is he played for Ross County twice and he's managed them now 3 times. So it's not just the case of him thinking that Ross County are better than Morecambe. It's probably just like a family thing. But yeah, I completely agree with you. Like Ross County would be a League Two team, I reckon. But obviously, I ain't got a clue really. But yeah, I've always thought. I don't know about you. I know we're going way off topic here, but I've always been of the opinion of let Rangers and Celtic play in the Premier League. Like Cardiff and Swansea played, and do you know what I mean? Like Welsh, like Wrexham are in the English Football League. They're in Wales. What's the difference? But
I think there was conversations about it a number of years ago. I think do you remember when like Celtic beat Man United in the Champions League? Like Nakamura scored that free kick, and their fans were like, "We're as good as some of these Prem sides." Obviously, Celtic have had games where they've beat Barcelona with Tony Watt scoring, etc. I can see what you mean. The fan base is massive, the stadiums are massive. You've got Welsh sides in there, but where do you pitch them into? What do you say? Right, we're just going to let Rangers and Celtic come into the Prem, and 5 teams go down to the Championship. It's never going to fly, is it? So then you say to them, right, you got to start your way up in wherever in the English football pyramid. So that's not going to work either unless you move to a 22 team Premier League. So on the face of it, great idea, massive clubs. In reality, not going to happen, is it? And also SPL. I mean, fuck me, it's tough enough like to have any interest in that with the old firm in it. If they left and suddenly the biggest game's Hearts v Hibs, then they might as well pack up and fold it. Sorry to any Scottish listeners. Right, we'll move on from that to and also another point I think we had on the standard of football. Their Yeovil, we're just about to come on to Yeovil. I'm pretty sure that their right back has joined from an SPL side and now playing National League South, albeit Lawro does say he's a cheat code at that level. So the money can't be that good in SPL if he's willing to drop down and play in Conference National League South. So I'm really not sure about that. But if you say if there's some family and it's his local club mentality about it, then fair enough to Derek Adams. Lawro can't be here today, as we've touched on. He's hiding because he can't talk about Yeovil's winning run extending, but he has given us a bit of an update, which I'll just run through to you. So we welcomed Farnborough to Hewish Park last Tuesday and made it 14 wins in a row with a 4-2 victory. We lost Jake Wannell through injury in that game, as well as Jordan Young picking up a 5th booking. For the first time in a while, we'd have to shuffle the pack. We went to Torquay in the FA Trophy, and Mark Cooper made 7 changes, including a start for new Bristol City loanee Duncan Idahan, a left-footed centre-back brought in to cover Wannell's absence. Michael Smith, Rhys Murphy and Morgan Williams were rested all together. The team still looked strong, but the winning run ended with Torquay prevailing 2-1. Last night we were back in league action at Chippenham, whose pitch resembled a golf course. I'm not quite sure what he means by that, because I think sometimes like golf greens are absolutely pristine. So I'm not sure if it was a carpet or whether he means it was really bumpy and undulating and not fit for football. But they sat deep and frustrated us for long periods. And although Jake Hyde came off the bench to give us the lead, a late own goal from Idahan meant that Glover's 10-game winning streak in the league came to a close. We're still 12 unbeaten in National League South and sit 9 points clear at the top of the table. And a preview ahead of Saturday, we travel to Welling, who currently reside well inside the drop zone, 3 points from safety. And the Glovers will be looking to return to winning ways and extend that position at the summit. So still very much on top of that league, Yeovil. Nice update from Lawro and looking forward to having him back on Monday. We'll finish with the treble, Tomo, sorry. So Lawro has gone for Millwall versus Coventry at 17-10. I've said that I'm going to go for Birmingham at home to Sheffield Wednesday above evens at 11-10. And then your selection, just to confirm.
Yeah, I'm going for Davis Keeler Dunn. Davis Keeler Dunn's side, Mansfield against Swindon. And if you're betting on a goal scorer, go for Davis Keeler Dunn because he's banging form.
Love it. And they're evens. Birmingham a shade above evens. Obviously, Millwall was a touched on 17-10. So that comes out on Sky Bet at 10-1. So £10 stake returns you 110. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this is going to be the week where the treble wins. I fancy all three sides, and we're going to be celebrating some much needed profit.
I'm starting to think that if our listeners just bet on exactly the opposite of what we say, they might be in.
Oh yeah, they'd be well up. I played golf with someone the other day who asked if we were getting paid by bookies to make selections because we lose money every week. And said he'd start to bet on the complete opposite. So yeah, it's been a bit of a disaster that, but I promise you we'll get off to winning ways very soon. I think Saturday, and we'll get some money back in those accounts for you all. But yeah, Tomo, that's it for this week. We'll obviously be back on Monday, all the weekend action back, which we'll review, and we'll preview the European and Football League action. But pleasure as always, mate. Have a great weekend.
Cheers, mate. Ta-da.
Cheers. Bye.